Hey, 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 FitMama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the FitMama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, 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 Dave. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Honored to be here, and congratulations on 100.
Thank you, honey. I thought it was appropriate to have you on my podcast for 100 since I was on yours for 100. And
yeah,
it was pretty special.
It was great having you on mine, and very well received. And of course, we get exposed to each other's followers a little bit, just mainly through Instagram, I think, in terms of sharing our lives a little bit more. So it was really cool to have you on.
Yeah, there's definitely overlaps in our communities. I mean, a lot of your coaches are parents, and
well, I think that definitely is it. The parenting thing brings my people to you, or vice versa, a little bit in terms of, having someone involved in sport.
So today I really wanted to kind of touch on a few things, specifically about our relationship, and also specifically how you have been such a positive influence in my life, and how we've kind of grown together over the years. And I mean, we'll just kind of dive in. Like, we have been together, I was calculating, over 15 years now. And in a couple of months, it will be 11 years married.
Not bad, not bad. How about to those naysayers that thought we shouldn't be together?
How about the fact that I never really pictured myself married for a long time or something? I don't know. I never pictured a wedding. I never was one of those people. I think coming from a divorced family, I was sort of like, I don't know what that looks like. And what did you think?
Well,
your parents.
You know the answer. I mean, I came from a very stable family, and definitely I had a lot of positive role modeling, but marriage wasn't really a thought because so much of my focus when I was on, I guess, younger in those years or potentially get married was on career. So the universe brought you to me.
And you're 8 years older than me, so you had a pretty established career already when we first met.
Well, this wouldn't have happened. Like, I don't think our life together would have happened if I hadn't, probably, just because of who I am as a person. And you came to me at the right time where I was comfortable and confident in my career, and
you were ready.
I was ready.
Yeah, you wouldn't have even probably looked my direction before that. Well, you really never looked my direction. I kind of went after you, and you had pretty much no choice but to look my direction.
Well, yeah, I don't know if we want to get into all that, but yeah, it was great. I mean, it's. You talked about me being positive influence on your life, and obviously you've been a huge influence on my life, and all the success and I guess all the rewards are because of you and my interactions with you and how you've helped me grow as a person. So like I said, it's honored to be here to be able to share some of those experiences of us growing together.
Definitely. I mean, well, I think one of the first things that we really connected on that I feel brought us together pretty quickly was road trips. You and I each were part of the basketball world, and traveling was a thing. And we traveled on hours-long road trips across the province, country, etc. And that was kind of our thing. Each of us got so comfortable in that life after doing it for so long that when you had a road trip coming out for work and I kind of wanted to hang out, and we decided that we were going to go on this road trip together, that was just fun. We all of a sudden got stuck in the car together for like 5 hours straight. And it was such a comfortable place for each of us to connect because we talked on so many bus rides with so many people. Do you think?
Well, I think especially when you're in a car together, there's nothing else to do.
True. And we've always loved road trips for that because we're so busy all the time.
But it's important for me, I think, because I'm that person that doesn't talk. I'm that person that likes to be alone. So even on bus trips and stuff like that, I would generally be more alone because it was a great time for me to get in that Zen place and kind of just immerse myself in whatever I was doing in those moments. So even prior to that, I mean, every travel I had done up until you essentially was alone travel, getting in my car, driving somewhere for a basketball camp, basketball recruiting, basketball event. So definitely immediately you brought a lot of comfort and enjoyment to travel.
Yeah, and we've traveled so much together. And I think our love for travel is definitely, has 100% trickled into the kids as they are little travel lovers since we took them on a trip around the world. I'd love to go back because I really truly, when I look at it, go back and say, you were the leader of the trip around the world plan. And when you kind of brought that to me, let's take the girls on a trip around the world. I mean, I am a yes person, especially if it sounds outrageous. I'm in. So I think you brought it to me at the right time, but then we kind of really discussed it and it was awesome. Like, what were you thinking around that time?
Well, I didn't even understand your reluctance until maybe later when you kind of brought up some of your reluctance to it.
What was my reluctance? I don't even remember.
Well, selling
now.
the house.
Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, so let's give context
the things leading
here.
to it. Yeah.
So we decided to go on this trip around the world. And I want to go into the pre-part after with you because I wonder what instigated that for you because I love that you think differently in that way. And I think that's one of the things that we really connect on. But really, we had to make a few changes to make a trip around the world with a 2 and a 4-year-old possible. So you went on a sabbatical from your job for 6 months. We had to sell our house, which I loved, and we had since we were married. And that was our first home together. That was our second baby was born there. And there was so many emotional ties to that house. And for you, I knew it was a lot of frustrations. And I can see you laughing because frustrations were like, oh, I have to garden. Oh, I have to this. And you were busy with work. And I was busy. And then the kids came into it. And then it was like, we really can't take care of this house. And what are we going to do with it? We need to rent out a condo or have something that we can actually have an income property. And this house is too high maintenance for someone to rent. So we really got serious that we wanted to do this and this was exciting and for sure was going to be amazing, but very unknown and very uncertain and very scary in many ways with a 2 and a 4-year-old. And we were both just starting our businesses. FitMama and Basketball Immersion began in 2014 when we made that big decision, pulled the plug on everything essentially physically and just went remote. And yeah, I remember it was probably not for a few months that I got up the courage to tell you that when I walked through our condo for the first time, walking up those stairs and being in that space, it was beautiful. And our condo was incredible. And space-wise was even bigger than our house. It was open. It was bright. It was in a great part of town. We could walk. It was lovely. But these pangs in my body that brought me to tears that first time where I just knew I had to give up the house, do this for us and our future. But in the immediate, it was painful. And at that time, I still am like this. It's like, okay, I get that it's painful. I'm in my head. I go, oh yeah, it's painful. I know, but this is a sacrifice you have to make for this greater good and just get through it. And I didn't feel the need to voice it at that time, but it was so emotional for me. But I didn't want to influence you and change the decision because I knew it was the right decision in my heart, but it pained me that that was the right decision.
Well, it's good that we're starting off with something that shows that we're not a perfect couple, right? We're not. Like, we're going to talk about a lot of successes probably for the next little while, but we're not. And sometimes, which we've got better at, I don't know what you're feeling. For me, it was a complete detachment because I'm such a practical person, which I know causes some distress for you sometimes.
I'm such an emotional person.
You're emotional. But for me, it was like, this makes sense. This is boom, 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 done. Pragmatic, let's go.
It was a transaction.
And I'm very stoic, so it's like, done. And it wasn't even a thought otherwise. It was the right thing for us, and I really felt that. But I didn't account for the emotion of it, with you or our girls to a certain extent.
And the girls were so young, and they definitely showed some emotion. And I think one of the hardest things, and I don't know if you and I really spoke about this, was that at the same time as we moved, I had stopped breastfeeding Presley. And I had been breastfeeding and pregnant for 4 years at that point. And that was really hard because it was a new environment. So I thought this is the perfect time. She was starting to get like aggressive and I was like, this is not working for me anymore. I knew again in my heart, emotionally, that was the right decision to be done breastfeeding. She was ready. I was ready. It was so intense. And then that new environment, I thought this is perfect, but that was doubly heart-wrenching. And then I think I don't even know if I voiced that part about the breastfeeding thing because I always was very keeping to myself in terms of some of my emotions. And I would cry and I would be open, but I don't know if I got to the nitty-gritty. I think because there was nothing I was going to change about it.
Well, again,
you're very pragmatic and you say, let's change this or let's do this. And I was like, I don't want to change. this is so painful.
Well, we're going to speak on this topic probably a lot throughout this podcast, but it's just a case of me somewhat now saying, well, why wouldn't you just say it?
I know.
That's
Because
the thing. It's like,
but
this happens in every relationship.
Yeah.
Just say what you mean what you say, and then it's out there, and then it becomes, again, a conversation, and all these different things that, I don't know if it would have changed anything, because I think your practical side, your pragmatic side knew that this was the right thing if we were going to do this. And ultimately it played out that way. Like, it was the perfect decision for us. And one of the reasons we were able to do some other things later in our life as well.
Well, yeah.
But for me, there was another part to it, which was, you talk about me not wanting to garden, take care of a pool, et cetera, et cetera. That's because I wanted to work and I wanted to spend time with my family. And that's...
I totally I got that. Like,
the two balances
if I saw you out gardening, cutting the grass, it literally made me frustrated because I was like, he doesn't need to be doing this. And it took you away from us even more than your job did.
Right.
So I definitely saw the pragmatic side, but the emotional side. So we'll definitely get more into this. And I also want to, again, go back to the pre-part of our going around the world, because I think we connected so deeply on this desire for living differently. And you are sort of a rule-following rebel. I'm kind of a non-rule following rebel. And I mean rebel just in that we see things differently. We question the norms. We ask questions about how things could be different or how things could be better for us. And it doesn't mean it's better for everyone. And I think we definitely have that in us. So where did you get this idea of a round the world trip?
Well, similar to, I guess, you were in our relationship when you questioned whether this was going to be the relationship for you. It's the same for me with my job, with my life. It's like, is this going to be my next 20 years? Is this going to be my next 10 years? And if I didn't do something extreme, like not a week, not like something extreme, like take a year off and experience life differently with you, with the kids. And there's no question that was a big part too. I wanted to be more present for our young daughters at that time who would have a chance to be with me for a full year, like with nothing distracting essentially from time with them, which was incredible. But most of it was about, as you said, living differently and then seeing if this future, which was working for myself online, which you had planted seeds with me about, was something that I would want. Because
you've been working your job for what, over 20 plus years at that point.
I'd been coaching basketball for that long, yeah.
Season after season after season. Like, and if you weren't in one season, you were in another season. Like, you coached for 20 years straight in a camp and every minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Was that scary? Because I literally knew when I was 25 that I was not going to be working at a job, going to a job. I know that kind of scared you as someone who likes a certain amount of stability, but I knew the risk of working for myself was worth any kind of hard times because I loved freedom. And looking at your job, I played basketball in the, Canadian Inter-University League, and that was intense as hell for 5 years, let alone for 20.
Yeah, to me, not scary. I mean, the scary was the financial, like making sure we're okay financially. That's always the part that kind of it came back to more than anything. But actually doing it, you know me, like I'm all in, and I believed in us and I believed in our ability to do it. So none of that was scary, but it was hard. Like, I don't want people to sit there and think it was like this incredible experience. Like, it was hard. It was
incredible, but it was really hard. Talk about the hard things. What was hard for you? Because I know it was hard for me.
Well, we did some things that were scary. Like, we went to India with a 2 and a 4-year-old, and definitely that was a place where you immediately knew this was different. And it wasn't like going to...
You wanted to the Taj Mahal.
Yeah, even Fiji and some of these places, like, they're different, but they're not that different.
No, not compared to India. But the Taj Mahal was worth it.
Oh, the whole... Again, it's the part we probably talk about the most is going to India and some of these places. But, I mean, the hard part was, again, sort of this isolation. I know from you, from your friends, from your family, from some of these interactions.
Well, I'm so extroverted, and you mentioned how introverted you are.
Yeah. Well, and being somewhat stuck. And I know you felt that at the end, that you were kind of felt stuck a little bit, that this is we got to finish it, right? Like, this is it.
The trip itself, what did we do on the trip? Like, let's be really honest with what we did. We worked as often as we could, trading off the kids, or at the first couple months we had them in the school.
Yep.
So we had days for the first 3 months that we were off. And then for the rest of the time, it was, we were passing them back and forth, or we were, essentially we were with family for some of it. They came to Australia. We were in Hong Kong with family. So we had a little bit there, but essentially we were together with them. We would go to parks. We would explore a city. We would record podcasts at different hours of the day and night and be on calls with clients. I remember waking up in Vietnam and India. I remember that because it was such different time zones at like 2 a.m. to be on client calls. And it was very exhausting because the kids were 2 and 4 and there was no stability in that way where it's like, you're napping this perfect crib that I made for you every day for your second year of your life.
It was challenging. But again, I think back to that and go, like, if somebody asks me about the experience, I say, well, we saw the world through parks, which is to me, it's much better.
That's like, how we like it. The outdoors, nature, being in the community.
But you felt like you're part of the communities and stuff. And as opposed to going to museums and these very touristy things, which we're all for. Mm-hmm. But in these examples, the kids wouldn't have enjoyed it at that age.
And our kids were good at road tripping too, because we taught them that early.
Oh, we were blessed. They were really good road tripping and flying. And they love the experience and they have the travel bug because of that, and don't understand why they're not traveling every minute, to be honest. So
this has been that's the hardest part on that. We had to cancel trips right now for them, and they're like, what? No planes? What? Because that's part of their life now. Yeah, it's been fun. And I think one of the things that we also really have in common, which is I think a benefit, and we couldn't have really known this until we had kids, is our sort of free-range parenting style, if you will, where we really let the kids do their thing. Like, I remember back in those hotel rooms where we were trying to work or be at a desk or even just communicate, and they would be like hopping in a pillowcase around the room or talking on the phones. Remember we had to disinfect all the phones when we got there because they'd be like one phone and they'd talk. And we just let them explore.
We're not, and again, for someone who's very rule-oriented and someone who's not, being you, we came to this common agreement, number one, to allow our kids to be bored, meaning we don't have to solve all their problems, we don't have to organize it, we don't have to schedule it, and it's like, go figure it out. And you know what they started to do is they started to figure it out, and every hotel became an adventure and became this place for them to come up with these scenarios, and there were spies or they were animals or there was something that was just there to intrigue them and it became part of their play. And, we had traveled with some toys and different things, but we really didn't travel with much. And they just, and I think they still do that. They don't use a toy for its intended purpose.
I think kids do that so well.
Yeah, it becomes something else for something else. And it just becomes an immersion in that whole experience. And it was awesome to see, but it was hard. There were struggles for sure. And certainly we had to sometimes organize and just show them a way. But then once we show them the way, like, we're more shaping an experience than organizing and making it happen.
True. And you know what I really value about you that you've brought into my life? Because I have to say, and you obviously know this about me to some degree, is how serious I am. And play is kind of not one of those things I necessarily thought about a lot. Like, you're very playful, which is kind of interesting because you're so intense. So it's not necessarily like the first thing I knew about you as a basketball coach. And,
people would be rewinding that part. What are you talking about? I'm the playful one and you're not. I know. It's true.
You brought that out in me. And it's funny because actually right now it's popping into my head. One of the first things that you gave to me when we were a couple was this book called The Tao of Pooh. And it was Winnie the Pooh. And I remember you saying to me, something like, you remind me of Winnie the Pooh and you're just very carefree and free spirit. And for me, I thought, wow, he sees me as that. I'm very serious on basketball and school and achievement and winning and being, top of the class or whatever. And just excelling was my thing. And I always took that very seriously. Even basketball, which was a sport and play, was so serious to me. I had fun in practice, but I was serious in the game and I didn't trust myself and I was always scared and I was very serious. So for you, for someone who I thought was just like that, serious, you brought out play from the very beginning as noticing that was within me and kind of lying dormant, if you will. And the truth is, it did lie dormant for many years because I think just some of the hardships of, my youth sort of guarded me against being too silly and playful and just, I have to get things done. I have to get through life. I have to, I had a little bit of this sort of a scarcity scared thing going. Like I have to provide for myself and be independent, and all those kinds of things really scared me because I didn't have this certain trust in myself that I think was my playful side, that I could just believe that play was acceptable, play was valuable. How did you always know that?
I don't know how I always knew it, but I know that for you, like, it's all learning. It has to be deliberate and intentional. And there has to be deliberate intent on your part to let your playful side out. Because whether it's socialized or the way that we're educated, play is kind of beat out of us. Like it's taken out of us. And that's coming back to free range parenting, something that we've really focused on for our kids, is to be able to get them in this mindset of play and be creative and do your thing.
Which, to be honest, I really never valued. I valued learning for sure. I valued understanding things and education, but I never really valued the me part of it, and that's what I think is really something that I feel like our education system almost is sort of flawed in, is allowing the inner you to be revealed. And I think we do a good job of that with our kids in some ways. I am less so, maybe. You've taught me a lot. But it's like I try and control things and that's been my sort of one of my safety things. And you've really let that go for me by being such a safe person in my life.
Well, think about it. How many structured moments in your life are those most memorable experiences? Like, I just find when I reflect on my life, so many of my moments that were just these spontaneous, unstructured moments that maybe were unexpected. And that's why they indel such a memory. So to try and present that to our daughters or to us over the course of a year, but not so, at the age they're at now, we want them to still experience this creative side of their brain and not be overstructured and not be overtold what to do. And they get enough of that at school. They don't need it at home from us, is our opinion and our approach to that.
So true. And, I think a big part of that is that we create a safe environment for them. And I can honestly say, again, that's been one feature and benefit of you in my life, has been such a sense of safety. And I didn't really know this concept, I think, before. And now it's now with social media, people refer to someone in their life as their rock and someone who's just this strong person in their life. And I really never knew that concept and never had heard of it really before, but then identified it once I knew you and had you. So, well, thank you.
I didn't do a good enough job, though, obviously, if you were unwilling or afraid to tell me things, which is normal in a lot of relationships. But I grew into this more from coaching and more from my perspectives, is that over communicating safety and constantly communicating safety is the most important thing to development for players, for people. They have to feel that they're safe, or they're not going to reach beyond where they're at, and they're not going to be willing to make mistakes. They're not going to be willing to struggle, and all these different things that come with learning. And it's absolutely something that if I went back from the beginning of our relationship, I would constantly communicate safety to you, because you're absolutely right. It's the most important part of everything else beyond that. And for our kids, when we say free range parents, the number one thing that supersedes all that is safety. Now, we try not to tell them, hey, be careful, be cautious, because especially for girls, they're over socialized into constantly being careful and being cautious. But if there's something that we feel is not safe, then free range ends and they're told something that, hey, you can't do this.
Yeah. And we always kept a safe environment in terms of like things they couldn't get into that were unsafe, or knowing that they can be safe. So we just let them explore. And the parallels of how you've allowed me to explore, not only in my life, yes, with all the schooling I did, all the education I did, all the certifications, all the clients I've worked with, all the businesses I've built, all the work and things I've done that have been my creative outlet, that you foster that safety for me to be able to create, which I really wasn't grounded in that idea before you gave me that safety. And that safety was really, I mean, I talk about that safety on the Tantra episodes, when sexually, how you've opened me up by creating this really safety. So maybe how are you communicating safety? Because I don't even know that I'm conscious of that. Like, you're not using the words, you're safe. Like,
so I think my best analogy for you is you're the top of the pyramid and you operate at the top of the pyramid. And then I'm the person that fills in the base of the pyramid all the time for you. Whether you know it or not, I think intuitively you know it, but you know that there's always this base to come back to so that you can operate at this, which I've always said, you operate at this higher level that just is like amazing. And I'm always in awe of you and all this stuff. And sometimes the details that go into you being able to operate at that, you being able to operate at that level of your true personality. Like, I think it is like, this isn't you acting. You truly are constantly at that kind of that top of the pyramid level. So I fill in the base, and I think that's what you unconsciously know, is that I fill in the base.
You've never told me that before. What a cute visual. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's interesting because I do feel like there's definitely an element of, I live with sort of, I would say, my head in the clouds a little bit in terms of that kind of big thinking and that big ideas. And like I said, you were the idea with the trip around the world. But yes, I had planted seeds that you can work for yourself, you can work remotely, we can do things differently, as in be at home with the girls all the time, walk them to school every day, be a part of every moment of their upbringing, which only really lasts 20 years. I mean, then we can be in their life, but it won't be in as big of a way. And that was really meaningful to me. And you did do a good job with allowing me to infiltrate that in your brain. Thank you for being so susceptible to my suggestions and my big thinking by filling that base with the practical things, which we always and often sit down together. Okay, what are you doing? What am I doing? What needs to get done? And we're moving forward. A big piece for us was me taking over all the finances and all, because for our first, I'd say 10 years of our relationship, you did all financial things and paid every bill and all the things. And I had to worry not about those things in terms of a practical manner. You were taking care of the transaction. So I was able to go out and earn money and do all the things I was doing without wondering, is it April 3rd? Do I have to pay the bill today? Oh no, it's due at the end of the month. Like, that was just not a piece for me. And so while I was able to create and not have my head in those kind of detail-oriented things, you did for so long. And there was a pivotal point that I saw that part of you was sort of transforming. I think that it wasn't coming from a place of, I got this, no problem. It was starting to come from a place of a little bit of, I wouldn't say fear maybe, but maybe it came from fear. Like when we started to go on the trip around the world and all the different things, it was starting to be like, okay, I want to take over stuff. I want to do all of this. So you don't even have to look in the accounts. Because for me, I witnessed that whether the account was at $1 million or $20, you had a similar perspective to it, because that's where you were in your life of transitioning from stability to a more unstable situation. And I had transitioned 10 years prior when I went back to school, quit my corporate job that was really good, and then started from scratch. And you provided those safety elements for me. So do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I mean, let's go back first and talk about, like, how do you communicate safety? I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. You do things for people that take things off their plate. Mm-hmm. But more so, like, I know we're going to talk about sex inevitably on here, but this idea of creating, I guess, planting seeds about things that are okay. And if you tell me things that you might think I react negatively to be able to talk to you and say, you can tell me anything, mm-hmm. but here's how I might react initially. And I've kind of communicated to you about that throughout the years, is like, look, I may react negatively at first to something that you throw at me. Hey, we're going to become vegetarians. Or you said I'm going to become a vegetarian. And you, like, I could tell you I'm going to react negatively at first. But then when I get time to immerse and think about it, then I can communicate about that and come to some type of consensus. And that's generally it. And we've talked about that I'm much better with an initial shock from an email than I am from a face-to-face because it gives me time to process. So there's different things like that I think that brought safety in knowing
different kinds of communication.
I'm very consistent in how I am. Even if sometimes that consistency is frustrating to you, you know how that reaction is going to be. So a lot of those different things about just, again, taking things off your plate and everything. But
did I email you then 7 years later and tell you we're not going to be vegetarians anymore?
No, of course not.
No, I probably threw that one right in your face.
Well, you ignore rules. We know that. You just, again.
And I hate labels.
No. Yeah, you don't follow the script for sure. But that's what it's definitely one of the attractions to you, and one of the things I love is that you are consistently inconsistent. That we kind of joke that you constantly are changing, like every 6 weeks, 6 months, there's a new model coming out of Jen. But it's really not a new model of Jen. It's all this new learning, and you're a seeker.
Model.
Oh, you're a seeker. And sometimes, again, that's frustrating to me because I'm like, you're already the smartest person in the room. Why do you need to seek more? Why do you need to seek more? You need to share more.
Hey, FitMama. I want to interrupt this episode just for a quick reminder to check out the Love FitMama Way. If you haven't already checked out the book online, it's available on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. It is a very comprehensive book for you where I explain how the transition into motherhood is a window of opportunity to transform the core of your being as a human and a leader. I go into detail about what you can do physically to rehabilitate your deep inner core after pregnancy and childbirth. It doesn't matter how many years postpartum. I emphasize that being a fit mama all starts with love, and what goes into the embrace, nurture, and enjoy framework as I outline this journey for you. Because it's all about transforming from the inside out, focusing within, not without. Cultivating those healthy habits that stick, that are for you, is what this new generation of fit mamas like you really want. I lay out and I dive into the Fit Mama foundations along with all the relevant tools, new ideas, recommendations, scientific backup, and intriguing perspectives that will leave you feeling empowered Fit Mama and determined to connect deeper with your own core. Regardless if you're male or female, with or without kids of your own, you will find this book thought-provoking and practical in moving you toward true love and reverence towards your body and your life. I guarantee it, Fit Mama. Reach out. Please let me know how you like the book. It's only $4.69 on Kindle, and you have a Kindle app for free on your phone. If you don't, grab a Kindle. They're awesome. You can read it right on your computer, though. And the paperback is only $24.95. I honestly know that it's worth it. It is over 10 years of research and pretty much 20 years of experience, plus my whole life. But it is a wealth of knowledge. And I know this makes a really, really great gift for any of those pregnant or new fit mamas out there. I guarantee you're going to feel a breath of fresh air from reading this book, and sharing it with your friends and family is giving love right to them. I talk all about healing your seal and doing the pearl pull-ups to bring yourself back into a place of equilibrium in your core, a nice connecting with your deep inner core, how to rehab, what it all means, and it's super, super clear and simple. So check out the book, get it on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. And back to the episode. Have a great day, Fit Mama.
I have such a hard time sharing. That is interesting how since I'm a podcaster and I've been one for, the better part of 12 years. And the interesting thing is that I've become much more open in my sharing and involved more of myself in it, knowing that that has a valuable add-in part for people to really understand themselves more when I give my permission to myself to open up. But that was that did not come easy. And you know my childhood of moving around a lot, always being the new person, being kind of guarded, feeling judged, not sure how to interact with people, until I realized that this was going to be my life, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And if I'm wanting to evolve myself or expand or seek, I think that was just always an innate thing, because I was always curious.
Well, you operate so much with emotion and feeling that you have a hard time with specificity about being able to express it. So I think you've always been an open sharer, and your community will know that. You share stuff that a lot of people would never share. But I think what you've become exceptional at is specificity, and I think more direct sharing of things that are more practical and more direct. And
right.
I think that's scary for you, and it's scary for us to a certain extent. But you've done a great job of owning it and doing it. And again, whether it's sex or again talking about some of these things in your life and being honest and open, that's real.
Yeah. I mean, it totally is. And thank you for seeing that. And I'm just so grateful that, this year I decided to take that bold movement and book that Tantra retreat for us. And that was actually when I looked at it, and you and I travel so much. We travel individually for work a lot. We travel with the kids. I travel with friends a lot, different things. But that was our first trip together since we had kids that wasn't work related. And it was like this little retreat. And I'm into kind of retreat things, and you're really not into retreat things. So it was really scary for me to actually kind of do that and book that and be like, I'm just going to do it, and then tell them about it. And it's Valentine's Day surprise for me. And, I think why I finally had the confidence enough to just do that, something so big, it was like book flights and we're flying and book you off, and you're crazy busy in terms of your scheduling and travel. And it just felt right in my heart. It just felt right in my gut, which has been so many different things with you in my life with you. And at the same time, I think it was because I knew we were ready. I knew I was ready to open even to a new level. And I knew you were ready to open to me what I was ready for. And I mean, we have always had a great sex life. We've always done a lot of the things we ended up learning about at the Tantra, and we kept looking at each other going, oh my God, we invented this. But at the same time, we were not conscious of it. What did you get from the Tantra?
Well, it didn't have to be a Tantra retreat, first of all. Just the fact that you took ownership and you led me was unique and different. And again, at this point in my life, it was perfect, because I had transitioned from a day-to-day job to a more, I guess, open lifestyle, in the sense that I'm just relying on myself sharing. And it was a great time for my headspace to be able to, handle this, where someone else was in control, right? And we've talked about that I'm absolutely okay if you take control, because I live so much of my life in control. And that's just how a coach's life operates. And, to a certain extent, our relationship. So it was a lot of fun in that sense. The Tantra retreat itself, my biggest takeaway was just how much trauma people live with in their lives, and how grateful I am through my parents and my life, that I haven't experienced trauma to the level that so many people have. We all have challenges, for sure, and I had challenges, but however it happened for me, I have been able to operate at a high level with the things that have happened in my life, and I'm grateful for that. And it's amazing. I went to a sex retreat and I took away that about kind of this empathy, sympathy for other people, but that was huge. In terms of the sexual part, the big thing definitely was just, again, it was, I think I know we'd been opening it up quite a bit, and I think it intrigued us even more to be able to open up more about some of these things and confirm that we're on the right path to be able to, again, grow in our lives sexually.
And I think I've had sort of an evolution in the way I think I know, in terms of it being a very physical based act, let's say, action in the beginning of our life together, and maybe how I saw sex the first, X number of years that I was doing it before I met you. It was like I had this perspective of this very physical connection. And it was definitely that I emotionally connected with a lot of the people that I was intimate with, but I didn't ever consciously involve that part of me. And I am a very spiritual and connected emotional person. And I think, again, a large part, the safety, like before that, I was definitely more, unsure if the person I was with was going to be with someone else or leaving me. It was a very, I wasn't in really secure relationships for the most part prior to that. And I think there was an element of that non-opening up for me. Just, there was always that wall that I would go up until this point and then not beyond that. And it was from a soul level, emotional connection, not just a physical.
Everyone listening can relate to what you're saying in the sense that how many things do we not say to someone that could make our life better? Mm-hmm. Like how many things? I mean, you've mentioned many through our time together that you tell me later or after the fact. And again, in this coaching world, and I may be wrong, but my approach was always very direct and straightforward and honest.
Which, again, and I love that, and you taught me that, and you've brought that to me because as a woman, I was not, let's say, celebrated for laying down the law, setting boundaries, being straight to the fact. I was like, beat around the bush, people pleaser. Oh my gosh, what are they going to think? I have to say yes, even though I want to say no. That person invited me to the party. I don't want to hurt them, blah, 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 all that. And you wiped that for me. Thank goodness, because you just said, and this would seem obvious to someone in their mid-20s, Jen, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I remember that, like, I felt that in my whole body. And I looked at you and I was like, I don't? Like, I can actually just say no and not have this entire cascade of guilt that follows it and feeling bad and wondering what that person or persons thinks and all the things. And that was one of the most liberating experiences of my life.
So, two really important parts, I think, of your evolution as a person is, one of them is getting to the point that you really don't care what other people think about you. Now, we never get to the point where that completely is ever wiped. Because even at this point in my life, there's still moments where I care. But what I'm saying is you get to this really comfortable place where you are really sure and comfortable with who you are and confident in who you are as a person. And then the second is getting to the point where you're willing to honor yourself first. And there's an expression in coaching, credit to Doug Novak, but me first for us. Taking care of me, because if I take care of me, then it's going to be better for us. And too many people, and from what you've said about a lot of women, it's always about everyone else first and them last. But if you look at it from this perspective of me, take care of me, what would make me happy, then everyone else is going to benefit. And that's why I've been always very supportive, I hope, of you and all your wackiness and craziness and all this different stuff that, suddenly this is happening or this is happening. You're taping your mouth and, whatever it is. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, that's not my jam necessarily. I'll always try everything that you bring to me. But, fortunately, you're okay if it's not like, you got to do this. It's like, and some stuff I'm all for it. Well,
you close your mouth naturally when you sleep. So
well, not about, but greens or different things, some things that you've told me that are like challenging for maybe other people. But that's basically it to me, is like, if you take care of you, we're all better for it. Imagine if I somehow, put the shackles on you and said, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Then you wouldn't truly be yourself. And that would suck for us. And I hope that's really what has been a huge part of our relationship, is we've been permissive with each other in being and doing what you do. And you honor me, like, I love to work, and sometimes I'm sure you would rather have me do something with you, but the value of me doing that. Me first for us. If I do that, then it's better for us.
Totally. And I think one of the things that you come from a coaching, very male dominated world, especially you coached men and you were involved in men's basketball for so many years, that not that I assumed before I knew you that you kind of had an ego, but I think we all have this ego. And I didn't realize that mine really stood in the way for a long time in terms of my own self-judgment of myself, my own criticism, my own, what are they going to think about me? I have to uphold this view of myself with the public or with him or her or whatever. And you really helped me kind of leave that out of the picture by opening me up to how non-judged you would feel based on so many things. I mean, there were things that you just, it wasn't a thing. You just didn't feel judged. And I assumed you would feel judged about them. So for example, before we were even together, I had a vibrator. And then when we got together and our sexual life began, I was very hesitant to be like, hey, can I bring my vibrator and hang out with both of us, And I don't know when in our relationship, pretty early on, that I was comfortable enough bringing up that conversation, but I knew it was at a point where you were not going to, let's say, reject it. I don't know what I knew because I knew enough about your ego.
I never would have rejected it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I was like, men, what are they going to think? That he's not enough, that I need this, and
Well, I can't speak for other men, but for me...
That's what I assumed. I also can't speak for other men.
No, and I get that. And but I think the part for me that it just made sense is that the more pleasure you get out of the experience, the better for all of us.
And it was.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It just added. Like, I didn't... You and your lack of judgment towards yourself and towards me really gave me the permission and that role modeling that I needed to drop judgment towards myself, which did take long, I will say. But I definitely see at times along the way where I was able to step aside and just open up.
Well, which is good. It's been good for all of us. But for me, again, like, I just find so many people hold back saying what they need to say to take care of themselves in the relationship, in the moment, whatever it may be, on a team, wherever. I mean, just that. And then it's got to be the goal of the other person to truly find out what someone is honestly thinking. Because otherwise I can't do anything about it.
You're right. Well, and I think that was something that definitely took me a long time to become comfortable with, was having those open conversations. And I think that's just my nature, is that I wasn't always open to being that comfortable to being vulnerable because it scared me, because I did think, how is this person going to use that against me? And I think once we were married, once we had this very stable life and connection, deep connection, that I felt that sense of safety, that I was able to open up to that level. And we could, I mean, for us, especially, and I think this is paralleled in our life as we've opened up, is, talking about things like fantasies, asking each other for something that we might think would be, let's say, taboo, even though there's nothing taboo. And we've established that. And we're like, just let's talk about it. But before we said there's nothing taboo, each of us just assumed there must be something taboo that we can't talk about. So we held back. And I think there's these little holding backs that we do in relationships. And I know for sure there was times throughout our relationship where there were things that you did or I did, or things that were happening that in that moment we could have pushed each other away. We could have just divided and said, yeah, okay, well, fine, we'll stick it through, but we agree to disagree, and just pull a part of ourselves out. And I think what we always do a good job of, at least that makes me feel comfortable and continuing to evolve, is that there is no bad, that there is nothing wrong, that openness is better always than hiding anything, and opening up to things about like our fantasies, or hearing about yours specifically, not even being able to open up about mine, because I think I was and am still discovering them, and I'm always comfortable with my own because you've created that. But I also think for you opening up to me, and for me not to potentially be scared by something, for me to trust that I can handle anything I potentially hear, knowing that I trust you implicitly. Like, those are even really deep places that I've gone to, that I even more trust myself. Does that make sense?
Well, insecurities are really hard to overcome.
Yes.
But think about that. Think about sex as a great analogy for basically a whole relationship. And think about sex, and why don't we start a sexual relationship from the first conversation? What do you like? What can I do? What can I do to bring you more enjoyment? Like, every relationship, forget about sex, shouldn't every relationship be constantly based on that? What can I do to help you? What can I do better for you? What can I do better for you? Because there's always things that you hold back and we hold back that are these insecurities about what are they going to think, how are they going to react. And as you connected so much, I mean, almost all of it comes back to ego and this ego defense and this part of it. And I definitely have ego. So, I mean, that's natural because and again, I'm a little bit contradictory because I operate in an ego world and then I operate in this completely different world, which is egoless. And you've always trying to draw me back to the philosophy, egoless world. And now, because I'm separated from competition, I feel like I'm there more. And I think that's why we've kind of reached a higher plane of communication and openness, because I don't have to spend as much time in that competitive world.
Interesting. Really interesting. Well, and I think I've always been interested in, I know I've always been interested in the psyche and psychology and all that, and like understanding men and women and relationships. You know, I read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, like when that was first published, like in the 80s, I think my parents had that book. And it was like one of those things where I just thought, what? And even, I mean, I've had many different sexual explorations that have just really opened me up in different ways, but they've always come back to sort of a curiosity more than anything else. And I think that that is what's helped us so much in our life and what we're trying to, do with our kids really ultimately, and especially sexually. I mean, sex education, that's, I know, a very controversial topic, especially in America here where we are. But I mean, how we want to sexually educate our own kids is something that we're just about to embark upon and like understand. And you and I have been very open about different things with each other, and we do different sexual explorations, and we do so many different things to kind of expand and learn. And I think it's just that I don't know if relationships can start with those open things, because I know for me, I was non-communicative in terms of I'll have sex, but I don't want to talk about it. I was very nervous and very insecure. But at the same time, I mean, I've evolved so much since then. If I told you in 2004 what I really wanted versus now, like, I mean, yes, it would open up a dialogue that would have kept evolving also.
I would have been okay with it. Because again, it just would have made, it would have made things better.
Yeah.
Right? In some way. But think about, how did I know I liked broccoli until I tried broccoli? Okay, wait, maybe the first time I tried broccoli, I didn't like broccoli. So what did my parents encourage me to do? To try broccoli again. It's what we do with our kids with food all the time, right? It's like a few months later, try it again. You didn't like it the first time, but hey, your taste buds change and everything changes. And that's the thing. And I think that's an important part about living with you that has become such a positive for me is you used to wear jogging pants all the time. And then now you wear yoga pants all the time. And I didn't initially like yoga pants, for example. But then it became, okay, well, I'm going to see, do I tell her I don't ever want her to wear yoga pants, or do I find a way to turn that into a positive and say, hey, listen, now I really like yoga pants, that type of thing. So it's kind of this process of being constantly open-minded, non-judgmental, and curious. And if we could, and that's our desire with each other, is just to operate that way, like be open-minded, right? Be curious. And no judgments.
No. And we're starting right now, and I'm going to link it up in the show notes for this, the Kenneth Play videos, which is the Sex Hacker Pro program. And I'm so excited to dive into this and just even go deeper, because it's almost like there's definitely sex education that we can learn from each other by being open. We can learn from Tantra retreats or online things. But I think there's such an element that we have connected over, which has been bringing different fantasies or videos or gifts or things that we've seen or thought of into our bedroom experience, and creating that safe container where, we explore deeper sexually and that ergo emotionally and soul consciously. And then we bring that into the next day. I mean, I cannot tell you the other night, we had an amazing night that I won't go into more detail, but the morning I woke up after, babe, I remember the feeling I had. It was like just so connected, so alive, so full of vitality. And it wasn't the physical piece of it. It was like my heart was so expanded. Everything felt brighter. Everything felt more beautiful because I felt so deeply connected with you and so seen by you in a way that I never maybe have been seen by anyone because I've never shown them this true light of me. And when I look at you looking at me sometimes, it makes me come alive in a way that me looking at myself in the mirror and finally accepting my own body and all how beautiful it is has been huge. But seeing myself through your eyes sometimes and the beauty that you see has truly just allowed me to blossom. So thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Why wouldn't I want that though? That's the thing. Why wouldn't I want that for you? And for me, again, it comes back to this. We've talked about love and lust. Like, why can't the same person be both? Right? And they can be. Like, I can love you and I can lust you. And that doesn't mean you're any less in the love. And I think that's, again, unfortunately, it seems like what women are socialized like into diminishing and not letting their light shine about being these lustful, you know, people. And yes, I mean, men operate a lot more from that, you know, whether it's porn or just fantasy or being visual or whatever people say it is. For whatever reason, we tend to operate more in that lust.
And it is more socially acceptable. And I know for me, and it, you know, it was one of those things where I can remember back when I was younger being conscious of, I can't have sex with all these different people. This should be wrong. And not that I was necessarily, I don't know what I was doing, but I remember always blocking myself, feeling like what I wanted was wrong, feeling like I should be different or I should be doing these things and following some kind of rules. And yet I was very curious and exploratory. And I had this big shame piece about whether it was being a slut or being a, you know, bad person or being wrong or something. I remember I held back in a million ways.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things to that, but it's experiential learning. Like, how do you learn anything? You have to learn through experience. You can read and you can ask questions and you can attend seminars and stuff. But the best part of the Tantra retreat was honestly after the seminars, when you and I got to experience or try or talk about
playtime.
Yeah, playtime. But it's experiential. It's learning that. Again, some things you like, some things you don't like. So it's
and some things you don't like the first time, like you said.
Well, for sure, for sure. But the other piece is obviously what you're saying is like giving yourself permission almost to be sexy. Like it's like, oh, there's only you have to dress up one night to go out and you want to look sexy, but no, like I want you to feel sexy every day. Like if you're going to the grocery store, I want you to feel sexy because that's a part of you. Like, why would I not want that for you? Now, I get there's the jealousy piece and all the other stuff. If like you see other people watching you or something, but it's like
I would feel wrong if I remember. So one of the things I remember early on in our relationship, I wonder if you really specifically remember this, maybe, was that I've always loved wearing heels, and I don't wear them every day by any means. And now that we've been home for a while, it's hilarious how I'm like, I looked at my heels going, I need to like store these because I'm not walking around the house in them for the most part. But wow, how much I loved wearing heels and how sexy I felt going out. But when I wore heels, I was actually taller than you, I think, by just like a little bit. And so I remember feeling a little self-conscious about that and feeling like, oh, maybe he doesn't like these heels because I'm taller than him. And that's like, I don't know if that's scary for him. That was very much a real part of my conversation. And now you love heels on me, as far as I remember. I don't think then you didn't, but I remember feeling that. What did you feel back then?
Well, again, we never talked about it.
No,
like
exactly.
Imagine if we just talked about it, and instead of you thinking what's going on in my brain based on, again, other
randomness.
Yeah, well, randomness, but basically from generalizations of others, which is the opposite of what you believe. But we operate that way. We go, okay, he won't like this, or he did. Well, how do you know unless you ask? And I think I've surprised you with many things through the years about things that I actually like or don't like or whatever it may be. And I'm not talking just sexual, I'm talking in general.
Totally.
You know, who would have thought? Like, again, like people from the outside, you know, whether it's your family, my family, or other people, like they have no idea that I'm this philosophical human being that operates kind of more in that than this other side, which, as you said, sees this intense kind of focused person. So And it takes a lot of work to get there, maybe. But that's the idea, is that you don't know unless you ask. So you ask and you say, do I like high heels? I'm like, yes, here's why. And now I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because we've brought it up, or we've talked about it, and we've talked about how it makes me feel actually is really good.
Were you insecure at first when I first started wearing heels?
No, I don't think so.
Were you ever insecure if someone else would look at me if we went out? Like, I always thought it was very fun and sexy, and like it wasn't like I was gonna go cheat on you. It was like, that's very sexy, and it made me feel it come alive in a certain way. It did definitely back in the days felt a little wrong, and now feels like, because we've communicated about it, feels very much more sexy and adds to everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I had insecurities early in our relationship, just because, we weren't married, or, we weren't fully invested, so to speak, and different things like that. So I'm sure there were insecurities, but I think a lot of things definitely moved beyond that. And I would definitely supportive again. Like, whoa.
Something that makes me feel good. Like,
why
you
wouldn't
were
I
very
want
observant to that.
Yeah, why wouldn't I want that?
Well, I wouldn't even admit to myself what would feel good. Like, that's what you've brought out in me. And I honestly, we could talk for hours, of course, and here we are still recording. And at the last thing you said, I was like, oh my God, are we still live on this? But you know what? I mean, I really, to really underscore all of this, and I hope this was valuable for others, because for me, I really, truly, just from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you for opening me up. I mean, that's really the thing. It's just, it's getting me through all those insecurities, those things that were sort of my cultural and socialization as a woman growing up in my life. And you sort of created a safe container for me to now explore myself over the last 15 years. And my evolution, personally, I truly believe has been, light years. But is such a just beginning also, which I just love. And that's what we create together, is this curiosity that we explore.
Well, you've talked about that we have these feminine and these masculine sides. So just with that, obviously understand that men are exactly in the same place. We're socialized into being a certain way, or expected to be a certain way. And yet we have these both sides that are kind of, well, hopefully in balance, but they're usually not, right? Because you suppress one side. I was
more masculine for most of my life, really. Like, and I wasn't masculine per se, but I just valued the achievement, go push, go hard, no pain, no gain, as I talk about in the Love Fit Mama Way book and all that. And it was really not until I had kids that I opened up to this feminine side of myself and valued it, because I didn't necessarily get feedback that yin feminine part of me was valued, other than maybe sexually. But in terms of just my personality that you've allowed to blossom out, which is my non-achievement side, by bringing me coffee in bed and I can sit and watch the sunrise. And for me, there would have been a time where I was like, you've slept in late. Why are you 3 hours late out of bed? It's 8 a.m. already, or whatever. Babe, I know I could talk forever.
It's great. I mean, I'm so happy that, again, we're this far into our relationship, and we're still learning it about each other. We're still growing with each other. We're still surprising each other in some ways, but we're doing it from what I think is a higher level for us in our relationship. And that would be, there's always ups and downs and plateaus and all learning, all development, all improvement and stuff like that. And we've gone through all those, and we're going to go through them again. But we're certainly, in a good place, because we're higher up because of going through all those ups and downs.
Totally. And yeah, the ups and downs are always there. And I think that it's easy to look at other people's lives and say, oh, that just must all be glorious for them. And I think it is glorious. Great. It's glorious if you are ready to put in the work, I think, because it's work.
Oh, it's definitely work, and it's intent. More than work, right? It's deliberate. And in the absence of effort, nothing else matters. Like, we've got to all start from a place of effort, and then we have to reward effort, right? Like, if I ask you to do, say, can you make me a cake? You've never made a cake before. And the first cake you make is bad. And I tell you it's a bad cake. What's your incentive to make another cake? How about if I said, hey, great effort making a cake. I really appreciate you trying to make a cake. Would you be more receptive to feedback in that scenario than you would be in terrible cake?
Totally.
And that's how we operate. We
and then I would close my heart and be like, never making him anything again.
Yeah, exactly. And again, extrapolate that analogy to everything else that we do to each other in our lives.
Totally.
And we just, again, you and I especially, and most couples can hopefully get beyond that and just be obviously more upfront and more honest and more direct. And then that just, again, circles back to us both being happier with ourselves first.
So, yeah.
And then it's easier to connect from that place.
Totally, babe. Thank you for sharing today, my love.
I'm always happy to share.
Thank you.
And thank you. And again, congratulations on 100. And you're amazing. You're incredible. The energy and the aura that you put into the world, my world, our daughter's world, and every person that you touch is just incredible. And we're so grateful for you.
Thank you, babe. That means a lot. I love you.